right, Aaron Brightman, Rapid Reaction, Scarlet Faithful podcast. Rutgers just gets steamrolled in West Lafayette on Thursday night, losing to Purdue 96-68. Wasn't even that close in terms of the final score. Listen, it was Purdue dominated. Rutgers tried to keep up. Recipe for disaster. I think the biggest takeaway was that the number 2 defense in the country, efficiency wise, and the number 2 offense in Purdue, it was a mismatch. Purdue, obviously angry after losing at Ohio State, came out just extremely sharp, could not miss, but it was their ball movement. They were sharing the basketball. They were very crisp with their passes, and Rutgers was nowhere near where they needed to be intensity-wise, connectedness on the defensive end. They just got blown out because they've now back-to-back their worst defensive performances of the season. That's actually not even opinion. That's in terms of a defensive efficiency. Statistically, the 2 worst performances this season. I don't have to see what tonight is yet, but I know it's got to be worse. I mean, Purdue worse than Minnesota, which was, statistically very bad. Purdue shot 59%. They had over 1.5 points per possession, which is insane. They shot 12 of 23 from 3. They were, 90% from the foul line, 18 of 20. They were 14 of 17 on layups and dunks. Just way too many easy baskets, uncontested shots, wide open paths to the basket. That to me was the most. Listen, you can't have expected a win in this situation. And of course, they get the news that Mawat Mag's not going to play. Steve Peichel, after the game, addressed it on the radio with Jerry Recco and Austin Johnson. Direct quote: "He couldn't play. He practiced great yesterday, but we've been battling that all year long. Another defender always helps. But 96 points, we got good enough players to keep Purdue in the 70s. That's what we felt like we needed to do." And they didn't come close to doing that. Mag, of course, is really the glue that keeps that defense at the level that they've been. Rutgers played really well against Northwestern without him on the defensive end. But, again, Northwestern is not the same kind of offensive team. They also, Longborg left the game very early. They were without Ty Berry. Much different task. And credit to Rutgers in that game, of course. But on the road in Mackey, hostile environment, team coming off a disappointing road loss. They were chomping at the bit, and Rutgers could not meet the moment. They could not match the intensity of Purdue. I liked their approach on offense at the start, but you just knew that they were able to get some turnovers and score off of turnovers, and they were disruptive in passing lanes in the beginning. But physically, they were overmatched, and they just they lacked discipline in the half court. They were lost at times. The bench got a lot of run tonight. The bench struggled some on the defensive end. It was just a really tough defensive performance to watch. It was the most points that Rutgers Steve Peichel team has given up in his 8-year tenure. And, defensive efficiency, Mike O'Donnell is the worst performance in his tenure as well. We'll look that up down the road. Maybe when I can't sleep tonight because I'm just, seeing every Purdue player score easy baskets. But it was a very disappointing night for sure. Major concern now. Mawat Mag, it sounds like he's, dealing with that knee soreness. It's the opposite knee, not the knee that he, tore his ACL and missed last season. Could be some overcompensation there. It takes a while to get your body right, but he's obviously been playing for the majority of since his return in December, and to know that he was practicing the day before the game, it seems like it was not a foregone conclusion he would miss this game. That is good news that he's not injured to the point where he can't practice and he can't be available. I mentioned in my preview for the Purdue game, I thought, it was a kind of a tell that he wasn't feeling right against Minnesota, and the fact that he fouled out, his timing was off, his footwork, he's just a little bit just off a rhythm. So that's the biggest concern, I think, out of anything tonight, is if Mawot Mag is unable to be the defensive force that this team has counted on him to be. They're not the same team. And that being said, you have 3 winnable home games coming up now that, you could still win. And I think if they get to 17 regular season wins, I think you get in the NIT. The NIT format has changed. It's going to be high major heavy, for right or for wrong. I think if they get to 18 wins, they're a lock for the NIT. Obviously, the NCAA dream, you have to go on some miraculous run at this point or win the Big Ten tournament. So not likely at all. And but that being said, if this team can pull it back together and get to the NIT, win 9 or 10 Big Ten games, that's, I think, from where they were, all the adversity they've gone through. I know people just want to lament the poor performances, but this team really has been through a boatload of adversity this season, between so many players, returning from injuries, battling injuries, having setbacks, the Jeremiah Williams issue, the way that they, responded from the Penn State loss. There's been a ton that's gone on, and they pulled it back together. They had that 4-game winning streak with Jeremiah Williams. Now they've lost 2 in a row on the road to, two top half Big Ten teams. Obviously, Purdue is going to win the league. And we'll see if they can represent the Big Ten well this March and make a run to the Final Four. But they're certainly capable. And offensively, I talked about, they hadn't made less than 8 threes in a home game this year. They're a different offensive team at home, and they were just dominant in every way tonight. Rutgers held their own in the offensive in rebounding in the first half. They were even. They were minus 11 in the second half, just got blown away there. Offensively, it's funny. Rutgers was 5 of 13 from threes, 38%. They were 17 of 20 from the foul line, 85%, very good. They were 7 of 8 on layups and dunks tonight. They were 11 of 33 from shots between outside the rim, 5 feet outside the rim, to inside the arc. So that mid-range game, the fact that they only got 8 shots at the rim is just not nearly enough. They obviously made them tonight, which is encouraging, but at the same time, you can't go single digits shots near the rim. And this team is just not a good mid-range shooting team at all, and they really struggled tonight in that regard. Turnovers were rarely were even at 11. Rutgers did a good job taking advantage of them. They had a 17-12 edge in points off of turnovers. They got 5 offensive rebounds in like the first 3 minutes and only got 2 the rest of the night. And Purdue, 10-7 edge in offensive rebounds, 17-6 advantage in second chance points. You can't allow that to happen. That's a disaster scenario. 26 points from the bench. Did want to talk about that. I thought Gavin Griffiths, I did like a lot what I saw from him tonight. He played with more confidence. He scored at the rim a couple times. He hit a 3 from Bloomington, Indiana. It was, I don't know how many feet, 25 plus probably. And, he missed some down the stretch as well, but he made some really good passes tonight, I thought. Let's look at the plus minus and the visitor stats to look at all the details. But Griffiths finished, 7 points, just 2 of 7 shooting, 1 of 3 from 3, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 turnover, 1 steal. He actually had the second best plus minus. Everyone was in the minus tonight. He was minus 9. But he didn't look intimidated. And I thought, there was some encouraging stuff from them. Ebola, he's overmatched at times, obviously against Edey. But listen, he had 8 points, 3 rebounds, 4 or 5 from the foul line, which was good to see. And, he's improving there. JaMychal Davis was 5 or 6 from the line. He's been, struggling from the foul line. So it's good to see these guys, Griffiths, Igbole, and Davis, combined for 11 of 13 from the foul line. That's encouraging, just from, people always complaining about foul shooting, and, they've been really bad at times. But it's good to see those guys had good nights in that regard. But Ebola, he's raw. His hands are, he doesn't have the best hands. His footwork, it's, he's going to take time. But he's a physical presence. He annoyed Edie at times, and he looked pretty good around the rim tonight. So that was also encouraging. Oscar Palmquist had 7 points off the bench, 3 of 5. He had a 3. He passed on a couple. Defense, he really struggled. Really hurt Rutgers, I thought, at times. But Noah Fernandez, gave this team a lift when they needed it early on. It was 22-21. Noah came in, hit back-to-back threes, hit a mid-range shot. Got called for that tee, which was very suspect. But he gave them a spark. So it was good to see him come out and give them some energy and some scoring. They need that from the bench. I've talked about who's going to make threes on this team. And, Gavin, Noah, and Oscar combined for 4 of 9 from 3 off the bench. So that's good work. I mean, Rutgers would take that more times than not. So, listen, the context of the game, there were times where, it was way out of hand and they got a lot of run in the second half. But, to get some experience is a good thing for a guy like Gavin and Igbole. But overall, not enough from the starters. Derek Simpson, just 2 points, 1 of 6 from the floor. Didn't do much. JaMychal Davis, he battles. The kid's a gamer. He plays really hard. He had 9 points. As I mentioned, good night from the line. He had 4 rebounds. He did have 4 turnovers. Sloppy with the ball there. Hyatt, 8 points, 3 of 7 shooting. No threes for him tonight. Did have a couple of steals. Cliff, just 4 points, 3 rebounds, completely neutralized, taken out of the game. The last 2 games after really battling Edie well during his career, Edie really dominated him the last 2 games this season. So it was a really, ineffective night for Cliff. And then Jeremiah Williams did have 12 points, led Rutgers 4 of 7 from the floor, 1 of 2 from the 3, 3 of 3 from the line, 3 rebounds, 2 assists. And overall, it was a painful night. But I think realistically, with what this team can still do, if they can pull themselves off the mat again, they've done it before. Can they do it again? You have Maryland on Sunday at noon, and then you have Michigan the following Thursday night, both at the rack, both winnable. Both teams you beat already on the road. Maryland is going to be tough. Michigan, listen, every Big Ten game is tough. But, Michigan's has some injuries now. Maryland, noon on Sunday, that's a real gut check for this team. Can they, pull themselves together quickly and stop feeling, not feel sorry for themselves, get the home crowd into it. And if you can win that game and then beat Michigan, listen, all of a sudden you're back to 8-9 in the conference. You are 16-12, right? So you guarantee not having a losing season. You have Ohio State on senior night. You go to Nebraska and who you've already beaten, and then also Wisconsin, who you've beaten on the road. Can you steal one of those? But we could just protect home court. You get 17 wins. You guarantee a winning season. You get 9 Big Ten wins. I really want them to get 10, so they get that 5th year in a row with double-digit wins. But listen, they're not playing for what we all hoped they would play for, right? In terms of seeding and making the NCAA tournament, it's very unlikely. But again, it's what can this team make the most of their opportunity that remains? And it was defensive performances like this that and this was the worst. But when they didn't rebound, when they didn't defend earlier in the season, that's what was so disheartening. And you saw that tonight. So there's always things that go on behind the scenes, but it certainly this team did not have the fight or the spirit that they needed tonight. They were not connected on the floor. They were not communicating well enough. They did not have the energy to compete. They were unable to rise to the occasion. And again, they started well. Purdue, to their credit, made a ton of tough shots, but then it just kind of opened up and it was a blitz, and it was tough to watch. It was tough to watch. Beware of the trolls out there. There's a lot of people that want to make this a bigger deal than it really is. It's a shitty loss. It was, embarrassing at times at the end. This team is better than that. I'm sure Peichel is in their ears about that. But I think there's one thing that this program is about, and that you've seen from Peichel coach teams, is that after they lick their wounds, they typically bounce back in some way. And I'm in a way with the quick turnaround now. It could go one of two ways, right? It could snowball. You can't get over this, and then all of a sudden you lay an egg and a team you already beat on the road at home, and then you start to worry that the season could end on a negative note. Or do you pull yourselves together and get back to playing connected defense against a team that plays very good defense also, but not a good offensive team, but a team you should have confidence against that you just beat, and you got to want it more. You got to see the fight of this team on Sunday. That's what I'm looking for. And that's what I expect. I think that's what we all should expect. If you want to, get into, some of the comments out there are just bonkers. But anyway, that was an unpleasant experience. And I'm glad it's over. And I am here talking about it. I hope I helped in some way. But again, I think, you saw some of the bench guys step up a little bit. The starters did not. The defensive effort was poor. It was very just upsetting to see them get run roughshod like that in the second half. But, like with anything, the adversity, the obstacles, all that stuff that Peichel talks about, can they bounce back from this? Can they get better from this? Can they learn from this? Because the program is better than what they showed tonight. Again, lots of adversity. Mag being out was a big factor in this game. And I think obviously it's a huge concern moving forward in terms of what he can give them the rest of the way. Thanks for listening and watching once again here at the Scarlet Faithful.